I think it's super important that small business owners manage their overhead and create a budget and a forecast of revenue and stick with that. We have expensive taste and we like the best of everything. And I think there were points that we in fact grow our overhead too fast in alignment with our forecast and projected sales. And I do think that is probably one of the toughest things for small business owners to do. Not maybe watch overhead, but to prepare the budget and look at the forecast. But doing so, I think, is a huge step toward success in growing the company.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as a founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Stephanie Warlick. And Stephanie started out her journey being an athlete in high school. Wasn't always the best student with a bit of an intermix of ADHD, but loved their athletic portion of it nonetheless. But did get into college with a sufficient SAT. Afterwards, studied arts and sciences for a bit, and wish she'd focused on the degree, not and not gone to the school. And then worked in a family business after school. Then her husband started a small marketing firm, and she joined that for about 12 years, and then went out to the corporate world for a period of time and to provide a bit of a diversity in income with the family income, and then started the current business about a year and a half ago. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Stephanie.
Thanks, Devin. Thanks for having me. That was a good recap. You took some excellent notes from our original conversation. So
absolutely,
yeah.
Encapsulate everybody's life into the 30 or 45-second version of it. So it works out great. So so I took I gave the much consolidated or condensed version of it. But maybe to rewind and unpack a little bit, tell us a little bit about kind of how you were or got going in high school and the journey started there, and loving athletics a bit more than necessarily the studying part of it.
For sure, definitely. Thinking back to high school, I did a lot of reflecting preparing for this, and even beyond high school, I can think of creating and designing things as a child. So I think that I always had in me this desire to build and create and make things and edit, create and manufacture things. My parents were entrepreneurs and had small businesses, so I don't know if it was a nurture thing versus a nature thing, but I know I always loved building and creating. So and as you said, I was ADD, so school wasn't my favorite thing. I didn't know it at that time. I didn't actually get diagnosed till I was about 40. So that made really it very difficult to be successful in school. As you said, I did get into college, and with barely, I think I may have jokingly said to you, I think I got the score that you get for putting your name on the SAT. So I don't know why they let me in, but it worked out. I do think that it was a great experience, and I continued to learn things, but this burning desire to constantly build and create and invent was always there. I mean, if I again go back to high school, or even younger than that, I thought we needed to have self-cleaning windows. And because my mom would make me clean the windows, and I was like, there's got to be this something that I can put inside windows that would just kind of like the oven cleaner concept. And my family, my parents and their families didn't come from a lot of money. So whereas I wanted to be super entrepreneurial and try new things and go out and experience everything, I was always encouraged to just take the traditional route. And I think that's how I got to college. And I suspect many entrepreneurs get that way. The traditional route, because then you get a good job and you might get a retirement, and it's safe and secure. And I don't know, my mind never really wanted that.
No, makes perfect sense. No, you went to school. You know, you did. You know, however you got in, hook or crook, you got in and went and studied arts and sciences.
Yes.
And got went down that route. And then I think after school, you ended up. You mentioned briefly, kind of worked in the family business and got started that direction. But maybe tell us a little bit about the family business and then going on to working with your husband.
Yeah, for sure. So there were actually a couple family businesses. After college, I went and joined my mom and stepdad in social services. We had a juvenile delinquent school that we ran, and the students were taught GED in sports and trades so that they could come out of the out of school and go into the workplace and have skills. So I was in human resources in that environment. But my dad and stepmom had a construction company, and my dad had a restaurant at some point. He was a private detective and polygrapher. So my dad on the other side also always had lots of businesses, and that was super exciting to me, the variety of those things. As we fast forward to the end of college, my husband had actually moved on to, we lived at different cities. He tried living by me, it didn't work out. Um, he started a screen printing company. And so he was in the Washington, D.C. area. I decided I wanted to get married and be with him and move to the Washington, D.C. area. And I did try the traditional workplace again, back in human resources. And frankly, I've always been bored in the work in a traditional workplace. It just didn't give me the creative outlet that I needed with the intellectual work that I was performing. So I did join him, much against the advice of several folks who were like, do not work together. We weren't even married yet. It was about 3 months before
Mm.
our wedding, and I didn't enjoy where I was. So I just actually started working with him on a whim and said, hey, I can do your QuickBooks accounting, and I can do marketing, and I can do your HR. And he was super busy. So I went in just thinking I was going to do some work for him while I looked for another job. And 2 or 3 weeks into it, we were so busy and working 12 hours a day. I said, do I have to leave? And he said, oh, my friend said we shouldn't work together. That's not great. And well, again, with my coming from family businesses, there was never any concern with that. It just is in me.
Mm.
So anyway, long story short, he needed my help and I never left. And the most amazing piece of that was that we worked beautifully together. He is very artistic, ran the production, and I am very business minded. So over the 12-ish years that I was there, we grew 30% year over year for those years, and I loved it. And he stayed on his side of the business, and I stayed on my side, and I became the boss. He doesn't like me to tell people that, but yeah, it was great. We worked beautifully together.
Well, sounds like it was, you know, and I get where some people are, or even in a kind way or trying to say, you know, it can put additional strains or stress on a relationship
Yeah.
because now you're not only engaging on the, you know, the marital front and, you know, at home, but you're also seeing each other at work. And you know, that can, some people it works out great and it, you know, bring or is a great relationship, and other times it brings in additional or different tensions that may not always be beneficial to the relationship. But it sounds like you guys were the
Yeah.
former, had a great go of it, and had a great relationship, and were able to build a business, and did that over a
Yeah.
course of 12 years. Now walk us through, because at some point you decided, hey, you know, been doing
Yeah.
this for a while, and then you decided to go a different direction. But walk through a
Yeah.
little bit as to kind of what led to that.
Yeah. So, I mean, anybody who's here that's an entrepreneur knows that there are risks and challenges, and it's great. It's great, but you're never off. And, when the finances all come from one source, it is a little bit risky. So we did decide that at some point I was going to leave the business and go back to having a salary and benefits and things like that, just to relieve our business of that strain. He ended up keeping the business for 25 years. In total, I left, I went back into government contracting for another 10 years, and then about a year and a half in software development. And I just, at that, it was what our family needed at that time. And having been a small business owner for so long, I actually forgot what it was like to just have a paycheck show up in the bank account. I didn't have to process it, and I didn't have to worry about if I deposited checks to make it happen. It just showed up. So that was awesome. And then for that time period, it worked really well. But I really got to a point again where I just was intellectually not challenged. I was always busy at work, successful. I think my next book is going to be called Owner Mindset. And I think because I had been a small business owner, I was I was able to always think ahead of what my boss needed and what was in the best interest of the company. I knew those answers and could apply that to my everyday work. And that helped me be very successful in the workplace. But I really like building and creating and seeing the whole process from beginning to end. And you can't do that in a larger company when you have a specific role or job. Um, so I did leave, and I do have my own consulting business again that I absolutely love, called 5 Foot View.
So now, one maybe just a quick follow-up question to that. So as you went out, get it, or sometimes you're different phases of life, you build a business and you're saying, hey, we'd like to have a bit of diversity in income, or a bit of, if something goes wrong with one business, that we don't have all your eggs in one basket. So it makes sense as
Yeah.
you get the business to the point where you can or branch out from that. You went and worked with the corporate world. Now, how did you decide after working kind of the corporate gig again? I get from the entrepreneurial aspect of, hey, I just want to tried it out, still love doing my own thing, still like making my own decision and going my own path. How did you kind of decide that what, or how you were going to get into consulting, or what kind of led to that as the next phase of the business you wanted to pursue?
Great question. I think the initial trigger happened the summer after my 50th birthday, and my brother recommended the book Range to me. And the book Range is about individuals. I'll summarize it. Hopefully, the author doesn't get offended if I summarize it in a very elementary way, but it's basically about individuals diversifying and generalizing their skills and abilities, and not necessarily taking one set of skills and abilities and going super deep, but taking a variety of skills and abilities and having some depth across a variety, so more breadth than depth. And it really summarized for me where I was in my life after 30 years or 28 years of work experience, and how I had diversified in the companies that I was in. And I had all of these experiences with a wealth of knowledge in not only different industries, but all the different back office departments of an organization. And here I was still that, in my mind, that 18-year-old, not really knowing what I wanted to do with my life and why am I in an arts and science degree. It finally occurred to me, and the book Range gave me the confidence that I didn't have because I didn't have an MBA and I wasn't great in school, to say, well, this person says it's not bad to have the diversity in these skills and experience that I have, and there is value to them. And so I thought, wow, if this guy, the author, says it's okay, and lots of successful folks have varieties of experiences, and the more varieties of experiences that you have, it does tend to make you more valuable as a solutioner, a solution provider in different aspects, because you could draw on those different experiences. I finally looked at my husband. I said, I finally figured it out. I want to go help small businesses. I love small business. I love doing it myself. I want to help other small businesses with all the skills and experiences that I've gathered over the last 12 years in corporate world and my own business, and help them be successful.
No, makes perfect sense, and sounds like it was a good time and a good opportunity to go and pursue that and head in that direction. So you have that kind of realization, decide that's where you're going to go. Now, that was, I think, I remember when we chatted a bit before, about a year and a half ago. So walk us through kind of as you jumped into that new arena, how it's gone, or has it been rocket ship to the top and money raining down from the sky, or on the teetering on the verge of bankruptcy and wondering where the next dollar is going to come from, or anywhere in between? Kind of walk us through how it's gone.
It's not quite a year and a half, but it is, in just a little bit, it will be a year. But it is going great. Like everything that I've done in my life, I kind of threw up 12 balls in the air and I'm juggling all of them. I think that's probably back to the ADD I have. But that's exciting for me. So I think it's going great. I have a handful of clients, which is really the number of clients that I can handle at one time in a fractional mode for my consulting. I have started coaching, and I coach individuals on a method that I developed called Stand in the Gap method. It kind of aligns with the owner mindset. I authored 2 books in the last year, and I'm getting ready to start the third. So I'm actually having a ball. I love it. And the money's right where I would expect it to be at the size of business that I am. I've invested a lot personally in the business and growing it. But it's right where it should be. And I feel really good about it and wouldn't make the decision to go back at all.
Well, that's awesome. So it sounds like it's one where you get to continue to build on it, you get to continue to grow the business, and also
Yep.
you get to do what you enjoy and have a good time at it. So a great place to be. So
I love it.
awesome. Well, now as we've kind of reached the present day of the journey and kind of hearing about a little bit about how you got to where you're at today, great time to transition to the 2 questions I always like to ask towards the present day of the journey, which is the first question I like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? And what'd you learn from it?
Yeah, I love this question, and I thought long and hard about it. I wish that I could tell you it was going to be something super positive, like many of your podcasters, but it actually is going to initially sound negative, and it then turns positive. So be warned. I think what the worst decision that I ever made was not taking action to shut down aspects of the business when they started to lose money.
Hmm.
The My husband and I, as we work together, we give 150% everything we do. We're athletes, we're very competitive. To shut down parts of the business that weren't doing well, we just kept working harder because we thought if we worked harder and put more energy into it, we could turn it around. And what we failed to recognize was that it's a smart business decision, and maybe we were just young, but it's a smart business decision to say, this is no longer working, and shut it down so it doesn't take from the rest of the energy and resources of the business. And someone actually said that to us one day: closing something down is not quitting, it's a smart business decision. And that was so powerful for us. And once we were able to get our mind around that, like, okay, we're not quitting, we were okay with it. And we're then able to shut down parts that weren't growing, because we had grown our business from a 2-man shop and a couple 100,000 to several million and up to 60 employees at one point, and added all kinds of disciplines to the original screen printing. It went to embroidery and promotional products and consulting and warehousing and fulfillment and e-commerce, and then actual production and overseas production, a variety of things, and took a lot of overhead. So anyway, I'm glad someone had the courage to say that to us, and that we heard them loud and clear and said, oh my gosh, thank you for relieving us and letting us know we weren't quitting, we were being smart business people.
Hmm. No, that's awesome. I mean, it's sometimes it's those mistakes that sometimes it's hard to shut things down, or know when to give it a little bit more time or give it a little bit more effort or tweak it versus to say it's not worth pursuing, or it's not the profitable part of the business. And so it's always
Right.
an easy mistake to make, but one the great one to learn from as you continue to iterate on.
Yeah.
Second question now that I like to ask is, so now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you give them?
Yeah, I think it's super important that small business owners manage their overhead and create a budget and a forecast of revenue and stick with that. We have expensive taste, and we like the best of everything. And I think there were points that we, in fact, grow our overhead too fast in alignment with our forecast and projected sales. And I do think that is probably one of the toughest things for small business owners to do. Not maybe watch overhead, but to prepare the budget and look at the forecast. But doing so, I think, is a huge step toward success in growing the company.
Awesome. Well, I think that's definitely a great piece of advice and a great takeaway. So, well, now as we wrap towards the end of the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Thank you. Thanks for asking. So 5foot view, the number 5, FTVIEW.com is my website. There's a contact us form on the website, and that's a great way to find me, or info@5footview.com.
Awesome. Well, definitely a couple of great ways to connect, and definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, expand their network, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for
Thank
all of
you.
you that are, all of your listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on our podcast or the newly launched webinar series as well, feel free to go to inventiveunicorn.com. Apply to be on either show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And along your journey, if you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. We're always here to help. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks, Devin. Nice to meet with you today. Thank you.